Okay, I'm Gypsy, and I'm back. She wants me to talk some about some of the stuff that could be considered satanic that I did in the past. And I kind of got into it in Carson, Mississippi, and that was many years ago. And I had a satanic cabal that was made up mostly of young men. No other women were in it. And
now why was that?
Huh?
Why was that?
That was because they wouldn't let their girlfriends in it. I had no control over it. I said, why don't you get some of these girls in here? And they were like, no, 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 no. And
they wanted you all to themselves.
Yeah, they did. They really did. So we did a lot of things with astral travel. And we did a lot of things with ritual. I initiated all of them. They all needed to be initiated because none of them had been initiated into anything before. So I initiated them into an open-ended thing where they could do what they wanted to do rather than a closed, this is definitely satanic, or this is definitely Christian, or this is definitely Wicca kind of thing. They were great guys, and we did necromancy one night, and we went to this old cemetery because you could always go into the old black cemeteries in the middle of the night because they were scattered all over the place, and they were not kept up, and they were not guarded or anything like that. And we did the whole thing, the circle, the symbols, all the stuff, and we called up something. I don't think it was the soul of the person that was in the grave, because he had been in the grave for a good long time. But I do think it was an infernal, or otherwise a demon. And he stood on the outside of the circle. I saw him. The other guy saw him. We all thought he was a bush. But then when it was all over, there was no bush there. So he was about 3 feet tall and black.
Oh my goodness, so what was it? It was a demon?
Yeah.
A demon?
Yeah. An infernal.
A spirit that you conjured.
Yeah, we conjured a spirit, and the spirit put things in people's minds, and I told them not to brood on it, and some of them had very interesting dreams the night of it. My friend, his knee went out that night, and we had to get him out of there the best way we could.
So it went out in the cemetery?
In the cemetery, his knee went out. So that took about a week for him to recover that. They were all ages. There were none that were my age, but they were ages from, I say, 15 to 22. And they were all good old country boys, and they did Satanism. And so I guess that's how I first got into it, but I didn't really consider myself a Satanist, even though I did necromancy and all this kind of stuff. When I moved up here, I had a human skull, and that skull had been...
Where'd you get it?
Okay, I got it from the guys in the cabal. They gave it to me. It had been shot in the head, and it had a pentagram carved on its forehead, and it was just really not very good shape. The mandibles finally came out of it, and it was just, a skull. I could see the front teeth. And anyway, I brought it up here, and we have an area in town called the Old City, and it was full of bars and merchants, and it was the happening place, I guess you might say. And I would go up to the Old City with that skull on the top of my staff and walk around, and there were police there and everything, nobody ever stopped me. Of course, you probably wouldn't stop a crazy lady with a skull on top of her a big long stick. So,
were you wearing a trench coat? What was your
I was
attire?
usually wearing all black. I was into goth then, and I had gone through a really messy divorce, and I was real angry at the world, and came up here and was the only 42-year-old goth person in Knoxville that I know of at that time. Now there are plenty of old goths, but at that time, and I strayed into punk a little bit. I like to get in mosh pits and stuff like that. My friend Buffy, I ended up living with my friend Buffy. This is fast forward here. Her sister and her sister's 2 children lived at the house too. And one of her sister's children, the baby, cried all the time. And would go in and get to stop crying, and as soon as we left, it would be crying or whatever, you know. And so finally, they were all out of the house one night, and I went into that room, and I slept in that room, and I saw what it was that was bothering the baby. It was a hobgoblin princess. And she was really neat. I mean, she was really cool to look at and everything. And she would go over and pinch the baby, and the baby would cry. So I saw that, so I knew we had to get rid of the hobgoblin princess because it was torturing the child. And the child's mother, my friend Buffy's sister, wouldn't go in there and spend any time with the child because she was scared of what was in there. So we had to do something. So normally I let these things just piddle around. If they're not hurting anything or anybody, I don't go out of my way to exorcise them or whatever you want to call
You're
it.
talking about entities and spirits.
Yeah. I usually leave them alone. I got a page with gematria on it. Is that the way you say it, Buffy?
Gematria?
Yeah, gematria on it. And we set up a big ritual circle place for her to come in there. And they said there were blue flames all around it when I was doing the ritual, but I didn't see any. But all the people involved in the ritual, which was the whole household, saw the blue flames and everything around me and around everything else. And I tricked the hobgoblin princess into the gematria, and then we put down the circles, and we folded up the gematria, and we put it in a jar, and we took it to the river, and we threw it in the water. That baby was never troubled again that I know of. So that was a big working for me. What else, Buffy? Can you think of anything else?
There was that time you elevated the fire during ritual when we did the first LBRP together, and remember that?
I've forgotten about that.
Mm-hmm.
We did our first LRPD together. I somehow managed to elevate the fire, and that was pretty interesting. I've also levitated in the past when I was involved with a group that was kind of a cult that I levitated when I was taking lessons from them, but I haven't levitated since then. It's not real comfortable to have your head banging on the ceiling and you not know what it's doing. This thing just went dark. And it's not real comfortable to be banging your head on the ceiling and your ex-husband running into the room saying, "Get down from there, get down from there, get down from there." So I never attempted levitation again. In fact, I put some room between myself and that group, which was easy to do because the group was in Sedonia and I was in Clarksdale, Mississippi. So anyway, I was the town witch for Clarksdale, Mississippi. People came to me. I did stuff. I was there. That's where my satanic beginnings were, I assume. Because I didn't really have any before then. I was very much a Christian. Anyway, but it kind of sneaks up on you. It kind of sneaks up on you. You do this dark magic, and it kind of starts sneaking up on you. But anyway, I can't off the top of... my friend little Lisa and I used to go exorcise some demons and infernals around the UT campus when people were having trouble in their apartments. And that was hard work. And a lot of people, when you do that, start talking about it and everything, and that's not what you're supposed to do, because you just invite the thing back in on you when you mention it and mention the rite and all that kind of stuff.
Right. People don't talk about that anymore. You're not supposed to talk about your magic.
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk about it. So I did at one friend's house, and she too had a little girl with nightmares, and we got the thing out of there. And at that time, I discovered my ex-husband had been doing a little voodoo. Only I didn't know it was voodoo at the time until we moved down to Mississippi. Anyway, she invited it back in. She started talking about it and invited it back in. And I refused to do it again because she was the one who wanted it to stay there, evidently. So that was one of my least successful ones. But all the rest of them I know of were pretty successful. And so I did that for a while. Generally, everybody around me was telling me I was satanic, and I was saying, no, I'm not. But I was doing some pretty dark magic and picking pretty dark coven names like Lilith and stuff like that. And now I'm a crone.
And you've practiced a lot of different things too.
Yeah, I have. A whole
Different
lot of different
areas.
things. Uh-huh.
And now your patron
It's Santa Muerte.
Santa Muerte. Okay, let's talk about Santa Muerte, and then let's talk about your altar first, and then let's go into some detail about Santa Muerte.
Okay, this is my altar to Santa Muerte. It has candles. You're supposed to always have water on her altar, and it's supposed to always be clean, and sometimes she'll make bubbles in it for you. That's her water. This is her offering. It is a no-bake oatmeal cookie right now. I picked up all of her old offerings and took that one. And this is her incense burner. Basically, all you have to have for a Santa Muerte altar is a glass of water, a candle, and some kind of Santa Muerte thing for you to meditate on. It doesn't have to be a statue. It can be a prayer card. It can be a tapestry. It can be, a lot of things. But anyway, I had the statue. I went to great lengths to obtain this statue, and I really love it. And this is the benediction Santa Muerte. And she's all in white. She's spiritual. The white ones are spiritual, and that's what you're supposed to start out with, is the white ones. And then you can go to other colors if you want to. There are several colors. Red is for lust and love. Blue is for social situations. Green is for the law. So on and so forth. And anyway, the altar came together, and she has 2 LED big candles that came from Amazon on either side of her that stay lit all the time with their batteries and everything. And then she has some little ones scattered about whenever I feel like scattering about little ones. But she also has these that burn. She has tall candles too, but not right now. And those are for petitions and things like that. Favors that you ask for. Now
Those are made in terracotta.
Yeah,
Right.
those candles, and I got them from Buffy. Those 2 Santa Muerte or Sugar Skull, the Santa Muerte and the Sugar Skull candles I got from Buffy, and they're made out of terracotta, and they're great. They are absolutely great. But anyway, she accepts everybody. She doesn't care who you are, or what you do, or what you have done, or if you're a Satanist, a Christian, a saint, a sinner, anything you are, she accepts in her loving arms, because she is death, and death has to accept everybody. So she accepts everybody. She's, despite her fierce look, and she can be fierce, she is very loving, and she lets you hex people in her name, and bless people in her name, and all that good stuff. So you can do all your magic with her. She's just all there. And so I started studying her, and I liked her, and I set up the altar. I'm not sure that you would say I was a devotee yet, but I'm working on it, and right now I'm definitely a follower. So and she is from Mexico, but she had other roots in Europe and in the ancient Greece and ancient Egyptian and all kinds of different roots. And in the Indian, over in India, there's statues of a death figure that they would do sacrifice to, of fruit and food and stuff like that. As far as I know, there isn't much animal sacrifice going on around her, and you probably have to go to Mexico to see that. But she is very much my goddess right now.
You've been with her for how long?
For a year. Well, actually longer, because I was buying her statues and stuff before a year. So I'd say 4 or 5 years that I was influenced by her without really realizing that I was being influenced by her that much. But my friend Matt has been into her longer, and he makes these dolls. He makes voodoo dolls, and he makes these dolls. This is a Gede, or he calls her Mama Brigitte, but he said she might be a Gede too. So anyway,
hold her up closer so they can get a better look and kind of move her up and down slow.
She hangs around the graveyards. She is a guardian of the graveyards. She's very beautiful, and she could be used as a conjure doll, but I don't use conjure dolls. Not this kind, anyway. You can't really see her face very well, but she is the Swamp Witch. She's very cool. There's a lot of work that went into her. And I have these 2 of his dolls. And they're very good dolls, I'll say that. And he makes the smaller ones, the voodoo dolls, and they're very good dolls too. And he puts crystals and herbs and stuff in them. He doesn't make them for bad purposes, just for the things they're supposed to be made for by him. And anyway, these are the dolls. They're at the altar where Santa Muerte is. I don't know if you could call them part of her altar, or they're on their own altar, but she hasn't thrown them in the floor or anything yet. So she must not mind them being there.
Now, do you think she would throw them in the floor if she didn't like them?
Yeah, she has a big history. There's one guy that comes on TikTok, and he had a statue. He was cleaning his altars, and he had a statue of Baphomet on the altar where she was sitting. It was on her altar, and it fell to the floor and crashed and broke. So yes, she will throw them off if she doesn't like them. So she is what you call a living statue. She actually has some of her presence in the statue. You invoke her presence down into the statue and ask her to come in, and she has part of her presence in that statue. So they're called living statues. And this one has moved around on me. That lace veil that's on her was up over her head, and Evidently she didn't like it because now it's not over her head anymore. And she generally lets you know if there's something she likes or doesn't like.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
That's really awesome.
I highly recommend people looking into it. There's a book I highly recommend for people who are just starting their magical trip into her. It's Santa Muerte Devotion 101. It has everything in it that you need to start. It has everything that you need to know about. And it has everything in it. It's by Arnold Bastilio. And he also has a website called santamuertemagic.com where you can find spells and poems and prayers and all that good stuff. So anyway, I highly recommend this book.
Look at you plugging somebody else in for your interview.
Yeah, sorry, but I do highly recommend that book.
What is great about that book?
That book is simple, easy to read, and short. It gets right to the point. It doesn't get you off into some kind of
fantasy land.
Yeah, fantasy land about what goddess she might have been with the Aztecs and all this other kind of stuff. Historic. There's a lot of history behind her, but you don't necessarily need all that history. And this gets you right down to the bottom of it all.
Right.
Very quickly.
But do you have a reference for her as far as literal, or do you have one as far as literary for the history of her?
Yes, Santa Muerte by Tony Rollins. That's a very good book. I have it, but it's not here right now. It's at Matt's. Anyway, it has her whole history and stuff in it. It, too, is not a very long book, and it gets into really detailed stuff about altars and colors and that kind of stuff. Now, his book has the rosary in it of Santa Muerte. You can do a rosary to her, and I usually do it every Sunday night. But anyway, those two books are pretty good. I've also got the Grimoire of Santa Muerte Volume 1 and 2, and they're really good too. They're by Sofia Di Gregorio. Grimoire Santa Muerte. Spells and rituals of Most Holy Death, the unofficial saint of Mexico. So here's this book, and there's a volume 2 too, which I have on the other side of the room. They're easy to read, and they have different things in them. They have ritualized magic and stuff like that.
How long has she been around?
How long has Santa Muerte been around? Since before God. She is death. She was in the void.
I meant in the Mexican tradition.
In the Mexican tradition, I'm not really sure how long she's been around. It's something that just started sweeping over everything else recently. Within the last 50 years, I'd say. And she's the fastest growing, if you want to call her a religion. I don't call her a religion, but she's the fastest growing religion in the world right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful.
But the Catholic Church does not claim her, so don't expect you're going to find her in American Catholic churches.
Right. Is there any Catholicism in her worship?
Yeah, yes, it can be. It can be combined with Catholicism. It can be combined with voodoo. It can be combined with hoodoo. It can be combined with all that. She becomes another Orisha or Lao in voodoo and everything. So she can be combined with a lot of different things.
What do you think some of the more Catholic Santa Muerte practices are?
The rosary.
The rosary,
Yeah, it has different prayers in the Catholic rosary, but you can use a Catholic rosary to say it. So, because the Jesus on the end would be death, and on up through it. The Bastille book has very good rosary in it with very good prayers, but the rosary, definitely the rosary. And her connection with the Virgin of Guadalupe. She's very connected in with the Virgin of Guadalupe. Sometimes she's shown in the same clothes and stuff as the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Like she's a sister or
like
whatever.
An Alpha and Omega.
Yeah, like an Alpha and Omega.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that cycle. So if we look at it like that, like a sacred three or a mother maiden crone aspect, and the Virgin of Guadalupe would probably be considered the virgin or the maiden. Who would you think could be attributed to as the mother?
The Aztecs had one, Chinchin, who would be the maternal one. And I know it is. I can't say it. It's Tenochtitlan. And they mention her in the Rollins book, and that's where you get some of the history of her being the apparition of Guadalupe. So she could be the mother, I would say. She would be the mother, and then the crone would be. That's about it for today. Getting a little tired here.
Okay.
Bye. Hope you enjoyed it.